Welcome to another edition of the Marketer Zone. The Marketer Zone is a platform for marketers to share their story, knowledge, and experience so that they can be able to inspire a generation of fearless and passionate marketers. And today on the show, we are privileged to host a phenomenal marketer and one of Kenya's best exports. I say best export because she's currently not based here, but she's in Ghana. Fatima Alimohamed, the current CEO of African Brand Warrior. Fatima is a thought leader in strategy, brand development, consumer relationship, marketing, and communication. Thank you for joining us today.
Asante sana, Victor. Thank you for having me, and greetings to Wakenya wote nyumbani. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this session. I think it's going to be fun. And thank you for connecting me back home.
No worries. If we can just dig in, when and where did your marketing journey start?
Victor, if I told you my background wasn't even marketing, my background was actually criminal law and psychology. And when I was coming back to Kenya, I didn't know what to do. And it was through connections. You know how things happen in Kenya. It's who knows someone who knows someone. I ended up getting into marketing, and in the process then obviously I had to start with MSK. That's where I went and did my first diploma, and then obviously I went back to uni to do marketing. And my first job was actually at a small homegrown agency known as CCL. It was called Communication Concepts Limited. In fact, my best friends all came out of there, people like Mary Luciba, who's now with BBC, and quite a few other people, Nikita Fazal, and they were all running their own agencies. Others are working with prestigious organizations. So it started with CCL, and it was fun because I was working on small clients, big clients. I saw you had Dennis recently on your Marketer's Zone, and he reminded me, I'd even forgotten how I even met Dennis in the first time. There was Dennis and Davi, and I was handling one of the clients I was also handling was a client called Campsons. And that's where we got to meet. So the journey started with CCL. In the process thereafter, I moved to 8&Young and Rubicam. And again, also moved with a close friend of mine. There were a few of us that were poached by 8&Young at the time. And we moved in, and I think that was where obviously my grounding started at CCL, learning the ropes, understanding how it happens, understanding what client service is, what is this whole thing, in terms of marketing and communications. I think if I was to be honest, 8&Young and Rubicam is probably where I got polished and rubbed. We're working with some great guys. If anybody knows Chris Harrison, they'll tell you Chris Harrison is like the epitome of communication and strategy. He is so finicky about details. Had a great opportunity working under him, and Vernon Ayton, Joan Fernandez. These are people, from the olden days. We had a creative director called Mark Fidello and Kilimo. I don't know if you guys know Kilimo Wangoji. Great guys, you could just throw in stuff in there. Another guy was Rio Alves, who right now is with Brainwave, running his own agency. And these were great guys that we worked with because we were working on amazing brands like Castle Brewing. I was responsible for South African breweries across the region, in Tanzania, in Uganda. When Castle Brewing launched in Kenya, those were some of the clients that I was handling. Working on Bamburi Cement. A lot of you know it now as Lafarge. I was responsible for the conversion from Bamburi to Lafarge, and we worked on some great brands. In that period, I think as we continued moving, obviously got poached by one of the clients that we were handling. And that's when the transition happened, moving from the agency side now to the client side. I mean, if I was to go back into life right now and say which would be the best place for me to be, I think the agency life is the best life. And maybe, if there is something like the afterlife or whatever it is, I'd love to go back to the agency. That's where it was fun. There was sort of a sense of community where you could all be able to discuss things. There was competition, I don't know much about what's happening with MSK right now, but in those days, you knew when you're competing for great stuff and for the gold. But there was still also friendship, yet there was also competitiveness. And I think for me, the best years of my life were in the agency period. But obviously in the journey, I moved to the client side. In that process, I moved to Bitco, and I'm sure you all know Bitco Oil Refineries, now known as Bitco Africa, and came into that to create something called the Integrated Marketing Communication Department, which was creating an in-house integrated agency, but obviously still working with agencies, but there were a lot of things that we could do in-house. And at the time, I think one of the biggest success factor, if I was to look back, is Kimbo. At the time, Kimbo and Cowboy were being taken over from Unilever, and we were coming in afresh to relook at how can we build those brands. I can in fact see one of the ex-Bitco guys online right now, Parikshit Trivedi, who was part of the team as well. And we did some amazing stuff. I mean, to be able to get Kimbo to where it got to at the time, I think for me was the biggest success factor. And it felt good coming in also from an agency perspective, because you were able to look at things not only now from, a client out, but you're looking at it also from the consumer side in, because I think that's what is missing right now. A lot of businesses, a lot of organizations tend to look at things just from their perspective and what they know and how they produce. And then agencies look at it from the angle of, okay, what is it that I can do from a communication perspective? So IMC came in to sort of create bridge the gap between the two. And we did some great stuff. The next thing I knew was, okay, Fatima, you're moving. And Uganda became my home. So I moved from Kenya to Uganda. I spent 5 years in Uganda in a little village called Jinja. And again, amazing story, because in Jinja, it was so small that even the supermarket owner became my friend. I could take goods on credit, and pay maybe after a month or two. The same people you work with are the same people who you socialize with. It was a bit crazy, because these are the same people you're going to see every morning when you wake up. They're coming to have tea at your house, or you're going to see them for dinner, and then you go back to work. It was working 7 days a week. There was no break. Because there was nothing else to do unless you're going to drive up to Kampala. And Jinja was fun because, again, you're coming in from a city life. I mean, when I came back to Kenya, I came in from London when I moved to CCL. And then now it was like sort of going backwards to everything. And village life became the reality. But to be able to churn ideas in that space, I was handling Southern Sudan, I was handling Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, and Tanzania. And it was amazing because I could travel. I was traveling to places. And as a marketer, your job is literally like, we say the Umbwa strategy, management by walking around. And that's what we do. And if you look at dogs and security dogs, that's what we do. We sniff around and we try to understand what's happening in the market. What's the pulse of the market? And, going into Southern Sudan, being a female was a bit tricky. You're landing into a place where there's no airport. It's just an airstrip, dirt airstrip. You're carrying your luggage, you're carrying your bags, you're carrying everything on you. And people down the ground have got firearms facing the sky, ready to shoot the plane if they have to. And we would land, and we have cows grazing, we have farmers walking around. You're lucky if you haven't hit anyone. And there was just this little hole where you just pick your bags from as they throw it. If they feel like giving you a visa, they give you a visa. You don't want to get a visa, you don't get one. There were no hotels. We were all sleeping in a tent, and we still were able to sell in a market like Southern Sudan. I remember going into Congo. At that time, Congo was not taken on board as East Africa yet. So we had the East African passport, the Kenyan passport, and how we managed to walk in through Kivu, into the Congo side and still be allowed into Goma. And not be scared about whether you're going to be arrested, not make friends with the immigration guys, to be able to still go and understand the market and see what is really happening. And I tell people, Kenya for me right now isn't even where the challenge is. If you really want to know, you go into places like Congo, you go into places like Nigeria, you come into places like Niger, and that's when you realize that, wait a second, feeling the pulse of the market is about walking and being able to understand. So Uganda, and being based in Uganda, created that opportunity again for me. It opened, a whole box of, wait a second, the challenges, it takes to cross borders to be able to sell. Language barriers, even though everybody was speaking Swahili, but it wasn't really Swahili. How do you do that? So the 5 years in Uganda gave me that. It opened again another opportunity, another perspective. I mean, if anybody's sitting and assuming that Africa as a continent is the same, let me just tell you, please break that notion. Africa is not the same. As much as, yes, we do have the same kind of mindsets in terms of purchase and that, but at the same time, our consumers are very different. What they use, why they use what they use. You come to this part of Africa, these are people who are used to international brands because we're an import-based country. So if you come and give them anything that is substandard, they will be able to sniff it out because they have been used to getting brands that are coming in from the outside. While in Uganda, the next journey came in was Ivory Coast. And the next thing was like, Fatima, we want you to handle Ivory Coast for us because, as you are aware, Bidco Uganda was a joint venture with Wilmar. There were days I used to cook. I used to lift the marketing hat. I was also the chef for the board of directors and I guess also being a female, nobody thought about we're going into this island, which is probably going to take us 5 hours. At the time, there was no transport, there was no logistics. You take a boat, which takes 2 hours, and then you drive into the plantation. And nobody thought about where food was going to come from. There was no electricity. We didn't have anything. And here's Fatima, being the marketer, being the chef, being the mother, being everything, carrying food, going in and cooking for everyone. So I sit back and I look at my journey and I'm like, I've been there, done that, worn the different hats that we need to. And it's a question, for marketers today, do you really go out there and do all these things that, we've been doing? We've really been there and tarmacked the road. Next came Ivory Coast, a French-speaking country, and the challenge was like, Fatima, we need you to come in here. Can you please check the market for us? Obviously, with my little French knowledge, and that's why I think French is such an important language, or anything else that you can do to learn as a foreign language. Walked into Ivory Coast, again, walked into this market where I knew no one. I was totally different. And again, if you look at Ivory Coast, I call the Ivorians as the coconut Africans. Coconut, why? Because they're brown on the outside, but they're white on the inside. These guys are brought up the French way. It's about wearing suits and ties and wearing polished shoes and, everything is in place. You don't walk out with, even if you're going into the market, you see the salesman's in a suit. He's in an ironed shirt. And you're like, wait a second, man, this is not the way we do marketing. But I guess that's what worked for Ivory Coast. And here I was, Fatima, putting on my trainers, going into the market. And it was a market, for example, if we talk about the sector that I was playing in, which was the oil, they used to sell 200-liter drums of oil in metal cans. And then people would come in and would dollop. And this is supposed to be an advanced country. So here came in Fatima, went into the market, did my analysis, looked at the costing, looked at the pricing, looked at the benefit, and came back to the board. And I said, hey guys, I think you're sleeping. There's a gold mine here. People are making $300 per ton in the market. What is it that we can do to convert? And we've done these things in East Africa. We've done it in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania successfully. Why can't we do it here? I came out of that board meeting with an approval of 16 machines to do jerry cans, which was a wow. Obviously, the Ivorians were a bit skeptical because this was something new for them, but we had to take the risk. I can tell you today, they're number one in the categories they're working in because we took the risk at the time. And again, I had a great shareholding team who believed in marketing, who believed in what we can do. And then before I knew it, I was doing this, between Uganda and Ivory Coast every month. And the next thing I heard was, okay, Fatima, we want to move you to West Africa. Now, if you remember, as Kenyans, there was a time, we used to have a stamp on our passport, and it clearly said the two places you would never travel to was Nigeria and Congo. It literally said we had a stamp. These were two markets you had to get permission if you wanted to travel to. So obviously, I had this image of what West Africa was going to look like and what it was going to be, because we never got good images sold to us. Today, I would say West Africa is the best place. If you ever want to do anything, this is a place you make money. This is a place you get to engage. This is the place you get to know consumers. So when coming into West Africa, I was given the option to choose to live in Ivory Coast or to live in Ghana. I looked at the two and I felt it was better for me to live in Ghana, and I chose Ghana to be the place to come in. Again, same thing. We were coming in to take over from Unilever over their brands, as we did also in Ivory Coast. Kenya did the same thing with Bitco. So we came in, looked at the market here, and I was fully responsible of setting up from 200 tons of a refinery to a 1,000-ton refinery. I was also the GM for not only the oil palm, but I was also the GM for the shea nut factory. So we were doing shea butter. And then I was thrown into Nigeria to handle Nigeria as well, and again, work on that market. So coming into this part, I had to handle areas like Benin, Togo, Niger, Burkina Faso, Senegal, and Nigeria. And that's where the journey then being on the client side ended, because after doing 80% market share within a year, I thought to myself, I mean, I did it for 5 years. What more? What next? What is the next level of growth? And I said, enough. I put in my resignation and I said, I'm done with this. I need to start something of my own. And that's where African Brand Warrior actually came to life. It was sitting on my couch. I remember speaking to a client. I ran some names by him and I said, what do you think? And I said, hey, African Brand Warrior is what you should go with. And I set up African Brand Warrior. And, you know, Victor, you won't believe, my first client was a Fortune 500 client. I was working with, in consultation with GBCH in South Africa, and McDonald's was my first client. Obviously, that gave me the oomph to think, oh my goodness, I'm onto something great here. I didn't have to go and market myself. People who had worked with me, clients who knew me, I can say to date, touchwood, I have not gone out to source for a business, for a client. Clients have come to me, and I've been blessed in that way. So yeah, in a very short summary, that has been the journey. And now here I am today as African Brand Warrior with offices in Kenya, South Africa, and Ghana. Obviously, the main hub is Ghana, but representation in those two markets. But I work with clients across Mozambique, Zambia, Malawi, Rwanda. I work in Angola. I work with Kenya right now. I work in Uganda. And obviously in West Africa. So in a nutshell, Victor, that's my journey.
Thank you for the summary. So
that was a very brief summary.
Yeah, by our standards. So you started at Young and Rubicam, and then progressed to now starting your own business with Fortune 500 countries or other businesses. And through some of that, you were able to hit some huge milestones. A case in point, being GM for 2 oil refineries and being a woman at that.
I can tell you. I'm actually writing a book about it. It is, it's very challenging as a woman. If anybody tells you that, you know, when you see women crying or talking about the fact that, yes, we do get taken through a tough time, it is a fact. I was the only female on the board in all the organizations that I was in. I was the only female that would be wearing heels when I walked into a boardroom, and at the same time, the same female wearing boots to climb up tankers and, you know, refineries. I was there for groundbreaking for almost both projects. So I know what it means to put on a helmet. I know what it means to sweat. I know what it means to keep family aside. I mean, my daughter, I'm a single parent. I never mixed between my personal life and my professional life. And it is a reality. It is a reality, the challenges women go through in the real world.
What do you think it takes, or rather, what does it take to make those moves? You started off as, at some point, you were like an advisor, especially when you moved to Ivory Coast, and then when you landed in Ghana, you were the head of marketing before eventually rising to GM. What does it take to make those moves? I calculated like 9 years.
And you got to know your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's knowing your stuff. And honestly, Victor, I have been a go-getter. I know what I want and I go for it. Even the jobs that I got into, trust me, they were already part of my vision board. I had said what I was going to be in. I had put in my vision board what positions I was going to be in. My vision board even had what the kind of cars I was going to drive. So it was all in there. But it's obviously going in and knowing your stuff. And I think this is where a lot of marketers get challenged, unfortunately, is when you walk into a boardroom, sometimes you get drowned. You get drowned by, different big wigs sitting in there. Everybody thinks that they know what they want. You get pushed, you get silenced. But if you do know what you want, if you have a passion, if you have a belief in something that's going to work, then you do it. I can tell you for a fact, there were times that, my bosses in various of the organizations didn't believe in something. Do you know, Victor, I paid from my pocket to do it. I paid to do it because I wanted to prove a point. The proving of a point here is not in a negative sense. It's to be able to sometimes break the barriers, break the mind shifts, break the fear that people have in organizations. People talk about FOMO, the fear of missing out. They talk about JOMO, the joy of missing out. But there's this other thing that's called FOFO, which is the fear of finding out. And a lot of organizations and individuals fear getting to know where their weaknesses may be, where the challenges are, and you the fear of finding out, even from data, that if I go and do a research, or if I go and push the boundaries on a certain thing, if I go and do this, what are the challenges that I'll be faced with? And that's where people get scared, because they're scared of the truth that may come out. I have always been very fearless about everything that I do, fearless in my thoughts, in my voice, in my opinions. But it comes in from a space of saying, I know what I'm doing. I may be wrong at times, but I do go out there doing, saying that, listen, I have what it takes. And it's, the onus is upon you to prove me wrong, So I think I would rightly say it's just coming in from a space of confidence, and confidence is what you've got to have. And obviously learning, unlearning, relearning a lot of things. Every day, to date, I keep learning, what's happening out there in the marketing world, what's happening in the consumer world, because it's changing by the second. So it's going in there with conviction.
I would say a lot of conviction is missing nowadays. You're able to rise from head of marketing to GM, and you sat on many boards. Where do you think the challenge is for most marketers nowadays? They don't get to see it at the decision-making level in organizations. Why do you think it's a challenge right now?
It's a two-pronged approach. Mm-hmm. One is, back in Kenya right now, in all honesty, a lot of the businesses there, if you keep away, the top companies, international organizations which follow a structure, there is a requirement of having to ensure that, NPD, R&D, marketing, sales directors sit, when it comes to the next level of the board, they're the decision makers, they have a say. Most of the organizations in Kenya are family-owned and family-run. There's a difference between having a family-owned organization and professionally run. A lot of voices, and because of that, maybe if I could put it, because of it being run in that manner, you find a lot of issues coming in where there's confidentiality, there's fear of sharing information, and also how people quickly move, between, you don't see people in a track record. I've seen CVs. Recently I put up something on LinkedIn looking for CVs for some of my clients. And the first thing we look at is, how long have people stayed within the organization? Is it a year, 2 years, 3 years? So you start having those challenges. And when people don't remain, then there's a problem. You need to know what is happening. So the challenges for marketers right now, it's obviously first from the organization, where they're not being given the opportunity to be a part of the strategy. They are just being created to be doers. Go create a poster, go create a campaign. They're not being brought into the think tank and what are the challenges that are happening, because they need to be in there when you're defining what these problems are. The solution maker is coming in from the marketing team. So obviously the challenge is from the organizational front, because they do not feel or do not understand that marketers are key and are integral into taking the business to the next level. From market and the individuals, I think it's more coming in from just theory and practical. A lot of the marketers, and I'd say probably more on the younger side than the older generation, have been thrown, and they haven't been given the opportunity, obviously from an organizational front, and also from their own, taking the plan, hey, listen, this is where I can break the barriers. This is the kind of things that I need to do. How do I continue investing in myself? What is it that I can do to keep learning what is going on in the outside world? It's not only about what's happening in Kenya, what is happening in the outside world, and how can you implement that? I know they will find roadblocks. I know that finance teams like to stop people, and marketing teams especially, that, oh, why are you spending so much money? We're not making that kind of on the bottom line. So there's those restrictions. But I believe there is so much that can be done. And I don't think marketers have to be restricted working for organizations only. There's so much that can be done by coming together and creating your own opportunities out there. So the challenges are both intrinsic and extrinsic as well. Does the environment allow you to be able to come out with some of the challenges that can be faced? Like I mentioned, what I was talking about, I think, for example, is Nigeria. For a bleach ad, Nigerians are known to be male-centric. It's all about the men driving a lot of things. Women have a power; they have a say in a lot of things. But when it comes to just certain things, there is a no-go area. Imagine a campaign that is running in Nigeria, which ran early this year, where it was about a bleach product. Now, bleach is about making clothes white. Who would have thought you would have seen a campaign where it was men washing women underwear, and they were taking you through the process of washing women's white underwear with this bleach, and about soaking, about hanging and drying. Is this something that can run in Kenya? So these are the kinds that we need to look at and say, hey, it's not because it's a marketer can't do it. They probably can do it, but will they be allowed to do that? Will they be able to make barriers? Will they have to test something disruptive, something that has not been done? Are we ready for that in Kenya? Those are the kind of challenges that are there.
So we need to be ready and open for new challenges if you're going to reach the levels of Nigeria. You talked about getting to know your stuff, and you went to MSK, got your diploma, went to uni. Were you part of any association, any market association in uni for students?
Yes, I was part of the university marketing teams. I obviously CIM. I continued learning. I mean, that's another thing. I became CIM vice president in Kenya. I was working with what's his name, Chris. And I was set up the MSK regional, Tanzania, Uganda. So I was engaging a lot with them. When I moved to Uganda, I was part of the marketing society in Uganda as well. I'm part of the marketing society here in Ghana. So yeah, this is something that you continue doing, but it's also outside just associations. Literally, investing in yourself, you learning, you taking yourself on that journey. It's not about just going to uni. I sometimes also believe degrees and all that really don't add value to. They just only help you from a theoretical perspective. It's about practical. It's about going out there and getting involved in stuff that's happening at a community level. I'm sure you're schooled as a queen mother in Ghana. And that came in because there was stuff that I was doing from a marketing front for the community, with the underprivileged and stuff that I did with people who are disabled. If you go in and check one of the projects that I worked on, was how can I create more jobs without having to, because I remember when I went to the company and I was like, listen guys, we need to start doing other things. And they were like, oh, Fatima, we're not going to invest in this, I went and spoke to one of the distributors and I said, listen, we're already giving you a certain percentage. Is there a way that you can contribute this percentage downwards, to do something good? And I went to and I got 110 people from the streets, disabled guys, and they all had to be people with leg issues. They were either walking on crutches, they were on wheelchairs, or they were using skateboards. And instead of going and donating just wheelchairs and whatever, I went to the Disabled Association and said, can we create jobs for these people? Can we link them with our distributors? And can they be able to go and sell into places where our brands are not visible? Because there's certain places, our salespeople don't go. It could be anything. It could be logistics issues. It could be infrastructure. It could be whatever. And Victor, I can tell you for a fact, I cried. If I show you those pictures of the prayers that I got from the association and all these people that I created jobs for. But it came in from a marketing perspective, that how can I use marketing to be able to lift people up? Because that's what we should be doing. That's what our brands should be doing. Our brands should be going out there and helping people and taking them up to the next level, So again, like I said, it's about doing things differently. You've got to have a passion to want to make a change. It's not just about, labeling and packaging and great communication. It's about making change in people's lives. And that's what marketing should be doing.
Yeah, marketing should be used for change. And I see our time is almost running out. So guys, when it times out, just log back in on the same link. You are chair of MSK at some point.
Yes.
Take us through your tenure during MSK.
I think it was a challenge. I mean, I was taking over from one of the best marketers at the time. I can't remember. It was I was taking over from, and it was a great team. I mean, that's where I met great people. I had a great team. People like Alcards, Anna Riago Oforo, who used to be with GSK and now is actually I'm not sure. I think she's a cabinet secretary or something, working with the government. We had great people like Mary Luciba again on board, Parmaine Olinakari, great people. Right now, when I look at, we were working very closely with Daystar University as well, so I brought a lot of the youth as well on board. It was a great time. I mean, under my tenure, we were able to move MSK from where it was to a new structure. I don't know where it is sitting right now, but we moved to Gailey and Roberts as a building, because marketing is about persona. It's about image. It's about, you can't say you're a marketing organization when you're sitting in some really dingy place. So we needed to change that. We changed our logo. We ran the first East African marketing conference. I was driving the agenda for marketers having to get licenses, and being continuously learning and being able to be going through examinations, whether it was every 2 years or 3 years, so that they continue to be relevant. So there were various things that we did in that period, and I'm very proud for, I think we probably even had one of the best MSK Gala, because we really put in our all. It was a great team. It was a team of doers. After that, I really know what happened or what's happening with MSK. I'm very rarely in touch with what's happening on the ground. I do know more from, William Colombo and the stuff that he puts up, on Marketing Africa, and that's how I get to know what's happening. There's been a sort of a disconnect, I guess. I don't know right now what MSK is doing, and probably it was something they were supposed to do to reach out to previous marketers or people who are of Kenyan origin and still in marketing. This is something they should have continued doing, because there are a lot of marketers that are still operating even outside Kenya, and we should be tapping into that network.
Yeah. So you left, or rather when you were at MSK, you were also part of the team that founded Brand Kenya. And when we log back in, that's where we're going to take it up from.